I knew my daughter's husband was greedy, but I never expected him to steal my safe key and record a confession planning to use my daughter as his alibi. Tonight, he expects a helpless old man, but he's about to be caught red-handed in a beautiful, glittering trap. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. The fork froze halfway to my mouth when Charlie's voice cut through our peaceful dinner conversation. It wasn't the tone that struck me. It was the specificity of the question. So, David, that safe upstairs, what kind of lock does it have? Lauren nearly choked on her water, spraying a fine mist across the linen tablecloth. Charlie, what kind of question is that? But Charlie's eyes stayed fixed on mine, waiting. They were flat, calculating, and there was something predatory in his expression that made my chest tighten, brittle as old parchment. I set down my fork carefully, buying time. The small clink of metal against porcelain sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet dining room. Just curious about home security, he continued, that practiced smile, the one that never reached his eyes, spreading across his face. You know, with all the break-ins in the area lately. What break-ins? I asked. I'd lived in this neighborhood of Coeur d'Alene for 15 years. The most excitement we'd had was Mrs. Henderson's cat getting stuck in a tree last month. Charlie waved his hand dismissively, the gesture too broad, too theatrical. Oh, you probably don't hear about them. The local police prefer to keep it quiet to avoid panic. He leaned forward, elbows resting on my antique dining table, invading my space. But a man your age, living alone in a house this size, you must have some serious security measures, right? Lauren shifted uncomfortably, sensing the sudden, sharp shift in the air. Dad's always been careful about locking up. Right. But what about insurance? Charlie's voice grew more insistent, ratcheting the tension another notch. I mean, if something happened to you, God forbid, Lauren would need to know where everything important is kept, wouldn't she? The room felt suddenly smaller, the mahogany walls pressing in. My hand was flat on the table, feeling the subtle vibration of Charlie's tapping fingers. I watched his pupils dilate slightly when he mentioned my hypothetical demise. It was a cold, clinical curiosity, not concern. I have everything organized, I said finally, my voice steady, betraying none of the alarm bells ringing in my head. Lauren knows what she needs to know. But does she know about the key? The question hung in the air like smoke from a match that had just flared and died. Lauren looked between us, confusion creasing her brow. What key? She asked. Charlie's smile widened, a true triumphant grin this time. The one in your dad's bedroom drawer. The one that... How do you know about any key in my bedroom? The words came out sharper than I intended, cutting through his confidence. For just a moment, Charlie's mask slipped completely. I saw something cold and calculating flash across his features, a predator caught in the beam of a flashlight, before the concerned son-in-law expression snapped back into place. I was looking for aspirin last week when my head was killing me, he said smoothly, a prepared answer deployed with flawless timing. Len told me to check your bathroom cabinet, but I accidentally opened the wrong drawer first. Sorry, didn't mean to invade your privacy. Lauren nodded quickly. I remember that headache. You were really suffering. But I remembered that day too. Charlie had been upstairs for nearly 30 minutes, claiming stomach troubles after dinner, long enough to do more than search randomly for aspirin. The aspirin's in the medicine cabinet, I thought. Always has been. Must have been really out of it from the pain, Charlie muttered, pulling back slightly. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he retreated from the confrontation. The rest of the conversation limped along, but Charlie kept circling back. Questions about my bank, about who else had keys to the house, about my daily routines. Each query felt like fingers probing a wound, testing for weakness. I, the retired insurance investigator, was being subtly interrogated at my own dinner table by my daughter's husband. When dinner finally ended, Lauren jumped up to clear the dishes. I'll handle cleanup tonight, Dad. You cooked. I don't mind, I said, already stacking plates. It was my routine, my way of processing the day's events. Tonight, I especially needed the familiar rhythm of washing and drying. Come on, honey, Charlie said to Lauren, his hand already on her shoulder, steering her toward the stairs. Let your dad handle his kitchen. We should get some rest. They disappeared upstairs, and I heard their bedroom door close. But as I scrubbed the dinner plates, I kept replaying Charlie's questions. The way he'd known about a key he shouldn't have known existed, the casual mention of my death and Lauren's inheritance. My hands moved automatically, wash, rinse, dry, while my mind cataloged every red flag I'd ignored over the past 3 weeks. Charlie's unemployment story never quite added up, his constant interest in my financial situation, the way he studied my house like he was memorizing blueprints. I finished the last glass and hung the dish towel on its hook. The kitchen gleamed under the overhead lights, restored to perfect order. But something fundamental had shifted tonight. The house felt exposed. Upstairs, I heard muffled voices, then silence. I moved to the stairs, my body rigid. I needed to see what other surprises waited for me in my own home. The first thing I noticed climbing the stairs was my bedroom door. It stood slightly ajar, maybe 2 inches of darkness visible through the gap. I stopped on the top step, my hand gripping the banister. That door had been closed when I went down for dinner. I always closed it, a habit from 40 years of living alone, broken only recently by my daughter's presence. But Lauren and Charlie were staying in the guest room down the hall. There was no reason for anyone to be in my bedroom. I stood there for 30 seconds, listening. No sound came from the guest room, no movement anywhere upstairs, just the familiar settling noises of the old house and my own heartbeat drumming in my ears. I pushed the door open slowly. It didn't creak. The hinges were well-oiled and silent. Stepping into my private space felt like walking into a crime scene. Everything looked normal at first glance. The bed was still made, corners tight and perfect. My reading glasses sat on the nightstand where I'd left them, but my eyes, trained by decades of methodical living, caught the discrepancies immediately. The closet door hung open exactly 4 inches. I always closed it completely. My dresser drawers weren't quite flush anymore. The second drawer from the top, where I kept important papers, had been pushed in carelessly. A corner of a manila folder peeked out like a yellow tongue. My stomach clenched. I moved to the dresser, pulling out the drawer fully. The folders inside had been rifled through, returned in approximately the right order, but not exactly. Someone had been thorough, but not careful enough. Insurance papers were mixed with bank statements. My will, normally kept in the back folder, had migrated toward the front, and the small brass key I kept taped under the drawer's lip. It was gone. I checked twice, running my fingers along the wooden surface where the tape had been. Nothing. The key that opened my safe, the safe Charlie had asked about so casually at dinner, had been discovered and taken. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from rage. This wasn't random. This wasn't opportunistic. Someone had entered my private sanctuary and systematically violated it, searching for specific items. Someone who knew exactly what to look for and where to find it. I closed the dresser drawer carefully, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it. If Charlie thought he was operating in secret, I needed him to keep believing that. Let him think his intrusion had gone undetected. Let him proceed with whatever plan he was hatching. I turned off the bedroom light and began getting ready for bed, moving through my normal nighttime routine. But every action felt different now, performed for an invisible audience. Was Charlie listening? Did he know I'd discovered his search? As I pulled back the covers, one thought crystallized in my mind. He'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. He'd assumed I was just another oblivious old man, too trusting and too tired to pay attention to details. He was wrong. I needed to know exactly what I was up against. I knew, then, I had to record everything. Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind cycling through the evening's revelations. Every small sound made me tense. The house settling, wind through the trees outside, the faint hum of the refrigerator 2 floors below. At 11:47 p.m., according to my bedside clock, I heard movement downstairs. Soft footsteps crossed the living room floor. Not Lauren's light step, something heavier, more deliberate. Charlie. I remained perfectly still, controlling my breathing, listening as the sounds moved toward the front of the house. Then, barely audible through the old house's thin floors, I heard his voice. Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep. A phone call. Charlie was making a phone call at midnight, speaking in whispers he thought no one could hear. I eased myself up in bed, careful not to let the mattress creak. The hardwood floor was cold against my bare feet as I moved closer to the heating vent that connected my bedroom to the living room below. Sometimes sound traveled through the old ductwork in unexpected ways. The old man's definitely loaded. Charlie's voice drifted up clearer now. I found bank statements, investment portfolios, the whole thing. We're talking serious money here. My blood went cold, freezing in my veins. We're talking. He wasn't working alone. Tomorrow night, Charlie continued, the cadence of his voice brisk and professional, like he was delivering a business report. Lauren's going to her book club meeting. She goes every Tuesday, 7 to 9, gives us perfect timing. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, my hands trembling as I opened the voice recording app. Whatever came next, I needed evidence. I already have the safe key, Charlie was saying. Grabbed it earlier today while they were having dinner. The old fool keeps everything important in there. Cash, jewelry, probably more bank information. The bastard. I pressed record just as his voice became more animated, more confident. Look, I know you're worried about the timeline, but my gambling debts aren't going away. Those guys aren't exactly patient, if you know what I mean. Gambling debts. That explained everything. The desperation, the calculated approach, the willingness to betray my daughter's trust. Charlie wasn't just an opportunistic thief. He was a desperate man backed into a corner by his own stupidity. David's just some lonely old widower. Charlie's voice carried a sneer now, probably grateful for the company. He has no idea what's coming. Hell, he was asking me about home security at dinner tonight. Practically handed me the information I needed. Rage built in my chest, hot and consuming. The casual dismissal in his voice, the way he reduced me to a stereotype, an easy mark. But I forced myself to stay quiet, to keep recording. The beauty is he'll never suspect family. Even if he figures out something's missing, Lauren will convince him he just misplaced stuff. You know how old people get about their memory? Old people. I was 66, a retired investigator with a memory sharp enough to remember every word of this conversation, including the way his voice tightened slightly on the word misplaced. Trust me, by Thursday we'll be clear. I'll tell Lauren we got a job offer in another state, something urgent. We'll be gone before the old man knows what hit him. Charlie was silent for a moment, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then he laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. Yeah, well, maybe he should have been more careful about who he let into his house. Life lesson, right? The call ended. I heard Charlie moving around downstairs for another minute, probably checking locks or windows, then his footsteps on the stairs, careful and quiet. I quickly stopped the recording and slipped my phone under my pillow. The bedroom door was still slightly ajar from his earlier search. I hadn't dared fix it and reveal that I'd noticed. Through the gap, I watched his shadow pass in the hallway. The guest room door opened and closed softly. For a long time after that, I lay in the darkness, processing what I'd learned. Charlie had gambling debts serious enough to involve dangerous people. He had an accomplice. He planned to rob me tomorrow night during Lauren's book club meeting, and he intended to disappear immediately afterward, dragging my daughter with him into whatever mess he'd created. The violation of my bedroom suddenly seemed small compared to this larger betrayal. Charlie wasn't just stealing from me. He was using Lauren as cover, manipulating her love and trust to set up his crime. He planned to use her unwitting presence as his alibi, then disappear with the proceeds, leaving me robbed and my daughter abandoned in a tangle of debt. But he'd made a critical error. He'd assumed I was helpless, clueless, just another easy target. He had no idea that I'd spent 30 years as an insurance investigator before retirement, or that I'd dealt with plenty of desperate people trying to outsmart the system. I was an investigator, not a victim, and I had a confession. The thought of his debt sparked a memory. Over the last 2 weeks, I'd noticed mail arriving addressed to Charlie. Aggressive, heavily postmarked envelopes I'd dismissed as typical dunning notices from his job loss. Now, they took on a different meaning. He'd mentioned his gambling debts weren't going away. I needed to know the scale of the disaster I was facing. I crept out of bed and into the guest bathroom, pulling the small step stool I used to change the high light bulbs. I found a few of Charlie's discarded clothes in the laundry hamper, and beneath a stack of towels, a torn envelope. It was a dunning notice, clearly marked, "Final demand." The principal amount due was $12,500, a substantial debt, but perhaps not the total. The letterhead was from a company specializing in high-interest recreational loans, a polite euphemism for loan sharks. I also needed to know how he got fired. The sudden layoff story was too neat. I sat on the edge of the bed and made a choice. I wasn't waiting for the morning. I had a digital confession and physical evidence of his debt. I needed operational intelligence now. I opened my laptop and started researching Charlie's old company, using a secure VPN and the network of contacts I had cultivated over 3 decades in insurance fraud. The key to the safe was already gone. Charlie had won that small battle. But he was about to lose the war. The timeline was tomorrow night, and the key was already gone. I woke at 6:30, same as always. The recording on my phone felt like the evidence of a nightmare, but the timestamp proved otherwise. 12:47 a.m. Charlie's voice, clear as daylight, planning to rob me tonight. Downstairs, I started the coffee maker and began my usual breakfast routine. Eggs, toast, orange juice, everything precisely as it had been for the past 3 weeks. When Lauren appeared yawning, I smiled warmly. "Morning, sweetheart. Sleep well?" "Like a baby. Thank you again for letting us stay here, Dad." Charlie appeared 20 minutes later, hair still damp from the shower. He looked rested, confident, a man with a plan. "Beautiful morning," he said, settling into his chair. "What's everyone got planned for today?" I set his coffee down carefully. "Oh, the usual. Might run some errands later." Charlie's eyes sharpened slightly. "What kind of errands?" "Just odds and ends. Hardware store, maybe the bank." I watched his reaction. A tiny muscle twitched near his left eye. "Nothing exciting." "The bank." Charlie leaned forward, immediately alert. "Everything okay financially?" Lauren laughed. "Dad's always been paranoid about checking his accounts in person. Old habits." "Not paranoid," I corrected mildly. "Careful. You can't be too careful these days." Charlie nodded too enthusiastically. "Absolutely right. Identity theft, online scams. It's a jungle out there for someone your age." There it was again, that casual dismissal wrapped in false concern. "Speaking of careful," Charlie continued, his eyes locked on mine, "I've been thinking about your home security. You mentioned that safe upstairs. Is that where you keep important documents?" The audacity was breathtaking. He was sitting at my breakfast table, eating food I'd prepared, asking me to inventory my assets for his convenience. "I have what I need," I said simply. Charlie tried a different approach. "You mentioned being a heavy sleeper last week. That's good. I worry about older folks who can't get proper rest." I hadn't mentioned any such thing, but I nodded anyway. "Oh yes, once I'm out, I'm dead to the world, especially lately. I've been so tired in the evenings." "That's normal at your age," Charlie said. "Your body needs more rest." No, he's right," I said quickly, pushing the lie further. "I usually take something to help me sleep, knock me right out until morning." Relief flooded Charlie's face. Perfect. Let him think I'd be unconscious and helpless tonight. "Well, I should let you folks plan your day," I said, standing to clear the dishes. "I'll probably turn in early tonight. All this family activity has me more tired than usual." "That sounds perfect, Dad," Lauren said. "You deserve rest." Charlie helped carry plates to the kitchen, and I caught him glancing toward the stairs, toward my bedroom, calculating, planning. "You know," he said casually, "I might stay up late tonight, watch some TV in the living room. I'm a bit of a night owl." Of course he was. I smiled and nodded. "Make yourself comfortable. The remote's on the coffee table." After breakfast, Charlie announced he needed to make some calls about job prospects. Lauren decided to organize their belongings in the guest room. I had my window. "I think I'll run those errands now," I told them. "You two enjoy some quiet time together." As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Charlie watching from the upstairs window. Not the guest room, my bedroom window. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Tonight couldn't come soon enough. My first stop was not the hardware store, but a quiet, anonymous office park 20 minutes away. I was meeting an old contact. "Ray, who now ran a private security and background firm, used to be the best skip tracer in the Northeast for our insurance team. "You're telling me," Ray said, looking up from his tablet inside his car. We were parked side by side in a vast empty lot, the classic investigator meetup spot. "Your own son-in-law. He has gambling debts, a recording of him planning a robbery, and he's using my daughter as cover. He owes at least $12,500 to some shady outfit, but I suspect the total debt is closer to $47,000, based on a snippet I heard." I slid a burner phone and a flash drive containing the recording across the passenger seat. "I need two things, Ray. Fast. Shoot." Ray's face was grim. "First, I need a deep dive on Charlie Thorne's job history. He claimed layoffs. I need the truth about why he left his last company. That's the easy one. Payroll records don't lie. Second, those guys he owes. I need a name, an address, and a sense of how dangerous they are. He's planning the robbery tonight. I need to know if this is a desperate theft or if he's working as an agent for organized crime." Ray looked at the flash drive, then at me. "Tonight? That's a microclock, David. I'll need 4 hours minimum." "3," I countered. "I need to be back home to set the stage before 2 p.m. Can you send me an anonymous text with a location to meet for the update?" "Done. Stay safe, David. This is off the books." I pulled out of the lot, adrenaline replacing the morning coffee. My mind raced through the implications of Charlie's betrayal. Was this job loss even real? My hands were clammy on the steering wheel. I kept my promise to Charlie and drove to the Riverbank branch, where I held my safety deposit box. I didn't go inside, but I drove past slowly, watching the traffic. Lauren knew I kept my key taped inside the drawer. Charlie had spotted it, and now he had it. The actual safe key was, as planned, safely tucked into my kitchen junk drawer. But Charlie wouldn't know the difference. He only had the key to the manual override. The safe also required a 6-digit code. I pulled into the parking lot of the local hardware store. It was time for phase 2, preparing the countermeasure. The investigator in me wanted paper trails, police reports, and formal procedures, but the grandfather in me wanted something simpler: humiliation, undeniable evidence, and a physical deterrent that would stop him in his tracks without causing lasting harm. I walked into the party supply aisle, the air thick with the smell of cheap latex balloons. I found what I needed: a small confetti cannon, the kind used for gender reveal parties, spring-loaded, designed to create maximum mess with minimum effort. Perfect. I also picked up a bag of ultra-fine glitter, the kind that sticks to everything and never quite comes off. Silver and gold, because if Charlie wanted to be a thief, he should look the part of a defeated holiday ornament. On my way to the checkout, I picked up a small, high-sensitivity motion alarm. It wasn't for the trap, but for a different kind of detection. I needed to know if Charlie attempted to breach the safe's digital lock before going for the key. The total came to USD 800, the exact number I needed to pay Ray for the background check, but now it felt like an investment in my daughter's future. I handed over the cash. As I left the store, my phone buzzed. It was an encrypted text from Ray. "Meet at the old gas station lot, 5:30 p.m. Info is heavy." I had my deadline. The clock was ticking, and I only had 24 hours to secure what I needed. Back home, I found the house empty. A note from Lauren on the kitchen counter. "Gone grocery shopping with Charlie. Back by 2 p.m. Love you." Perfect timing. I had 2 hours before they returned, and I needed every minute. In my basement workshop, I carefully dismantled the confetti cannon. The mechanism was beautifully simple, a spring-loaded plunger that would trigger when sufficient pressure was applied. I replaced the harmless paper confetti with my glitter mixture, adding just enough to coat someone thoroughly without causing injury. The fine silver and gold dust would cling to skin and fabric for days. The tricky part was calibration. I needed the device to trigger when Charlie opened my dresser drawer and reached inside, but not from casual contact. After several tests with a wooden spoon, I found the right sensitivity. Installation required precision. I placed the modified cannon inside my dresser drawer, positioning it so the trigger would activate when someone reached toward the back, exactly where the safe key had been hidden. To anyone glancing inside, it would look like normal drawer contents, a few old photos, some buttons, miscellaneous items. But reach in with purpose, search with intent, and surprise. I tested the setup 3 times, using a ruler to simulate Charlie's searching motion. Each test triggered perfectly, sending a cloud of glitter exactly where an intruder's face and hands would be. The device reset easily, ready for its real performance. Next came the key placement deception. I positioned a dummy key in plain sight near the front of the drawer, an old luggage key that looked similar enough to fool someone in a hurry. Charlie would spot it immediately, reach for it confidently, and trigger my surprise. The beauty was in the psychology. Charlie expected stealth, silence, success. He'd budgeted for a quick, quiet theft. He hadn't planned for a glitter explosion that would mark him as clearly as a die pack marks bank robbers. By 1:45 p.m., everything was in place. The drawer looked innocent and normal. The trap was armed and ready. I heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Lauren and Charlie returning from their shopping trip, probably feeling domestic and normal. Charlie had no idea his crime scene had become a trap. I closed the dresser drawer gently and headed downstairs to greet them, wearing my best grandfatherly smile. Tonight was going to be very interesting. After lunch, I slipped upstairs and executed the final piece of the puzzle. I installed the miniature security camera Marcus at Best Buy had sold me, nestled between books on my nightstand, angled to capture both the dresser and the center of the room. The magnetic mount held perfectly, and the camera's black casing blended with the book spines. I switched it to motion-activated night vision mode. I needed the footage not for the police, but for Lauren. Dinner passed peacefully with Lauren chatting about neighborhood changes and Charlie checking his phone frequently. I played my part perfectly, the tired grandfather, ready for an early bedtime after a busy day. By 8:00, we'd settled in the living room. Lauren curled up with a book while I claimed my usual armchair, making a show of rubbing my temples. "Long day," I murmured. "Think I'll turn in early tonight." Charlie looked up from his phone immediately, his eyes flashing. "Actually, David, I was hoping we could share a drink first. You know, father and son-in-law bonding time." The suggestion came out of nowhere, but his tone was carefully casual. Too casual. "That's sweet," Lauren said, not looking up from her book. "You two should spend more time together." "I was thinking about that bottle of Macallan I saw in your kitchen," Charlie continued. "Premium stuff, perfect for a nightcap." I kept my expression neutral, but internally, I was fascinated. Charlie had been planning this conversation probably since breakfast. The timing, the suggestion, the specific mention of expensive whiskey. Nothing was accidental. He had shifted from planning a robbery to attempting a poisoning. "I appreciate the thought," I said, "but I'm on medication that doesn't mix well with alcohol." Charlie's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Come on, one small glass won't hurt. We're practically family." "Really, I should avoid it entirely." "Dad's right," Lauren chimed in. "The doctor was very specific about his blood pressure medication." But Charlie wasn't giving up easily. He was pushing because he needed me to drink something specific, something that would ensure I slept deeply tonight. "Tell you what," he said, standing up. "I'll pour myself a glass and we can just sit and talk. No pressure for you to drink." He disappeared into the kitchen before I could object. I heard cabinet doors opening and the clink of glass. He returned. He carried 2 tumblers, one with amber liquid, one empty. "Change your mind," he said, settling back onto the couch. "Poured you just a splash for the toast, barely a teaspoon." He held out the second glass. The whiskey inside caught the lamplight, looking innocent enough. I paused, looking at the second glass. 2 tumblers. The whiskey in his glass looked a little too full. The liquid in my glass looked pristine. But I was an insurance investigator. I knew about sleight of hand. "Charlie, I really can't." "One tiny sip," he insisted, his voice hardening slightly. "Lauren, tell your father one sip won't kill him." Lauren looked between us, sensing tension she couldn't identify. "If Dad says no, maybe you should respect that." Charlie's jaw tightened. For just a moment, his mask slipped completely. I saw frustration, calculation, and something close to panic flicker across his features. "You know what?" I said, standing carefully. "I'm more tired than I thought. I think I'll take one of those sleeping pills and call it a night. Charlie's posture relaxed noticeably, the tension draining out of his shoulders. Sleeping pills? Doctor prescribed them last month. Powerful stuff. Knocks me out completely. Perfect, I confirmed, maintaining my tired elderly persona. I'll be dead to the world until morning. Relief flooded Charlie's face. That sounds perfect. You need your rest. I made a production of climbing the stairs slowly, pausing to grip the railing like an old man struggling with fatigue. At the top, I turned back. Don't stay up too late, you two. Charlie, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Thanks, David. Sleep well. In my bedroom, I went through the motions of preparing for sleep. Then I placed the small glass of water I would take the pill with on my nightstand. I confirmed the camera was recording, the battery was full, and the glitter trap was armed. Downstairs, I could hear the television playing softly, Charlie and Lauren talking in hushed voices, then Lauren's footsteps on the stairs, the guest room door closing. Charlie stayed downstairs, waiting, probably watching the clock, calculating how long it would take for my sleeping pill to take full effect. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. The camera showed my empty bedroom in perfect night vision detail. He walked out of the kitchen, and in his hand were 2 tumblers. The light downstairs clicked off at 11:35 p.m. I heard the muffled sounds of Charlie ascending the stairs. He paused outside the guest room, then continued on. He didn't enter the room he shared with my daughter. He walked straight into the master bedroom, mine. I heard the quiet creak of the floorboards beneath his weight, then the muffled sound of a zipper, followed by the soft clink of metal against the wood of his own bedside table. He was retrieving a tool, something he hadn't wanted Lauren to see. This wasn't just about the key anymore. I waited until 1 a.m. The silence in the house was total, heavy as a shroud. I got up, fully dressed beneath my pajamas, and slipped out of my bedroom. The carpet in the hallway absorbed the sound of my steps as I moved to the main duct vent near the landing. I listened. Nothing. Charlie was waiting for the supposed sleeping pill to turn me into a dead weight. At 1:30 a.m., I received a text from Ray. Old gas station lot, 5:30 p.m. is a go. Job. Fired for $5,500 internal theft. Creditors. The boys. High-risk collection. Total debt is close to $47,000. They've been to his previous address. The sheer scale of the deception hit me. $47,000, and he'd been fired for theft, not laid off. Lauren knew none of it. I crept back into my room and slid back into bed, the information churning in my gut. I had to let him proceed. He needed to be caught in the act. At 2:43 a.m., I heard the first creak on the stairs. I'd been lying motionless for hours, positioned so I could see the hallway through my barely open door. My phone, tucked beneath my pillow, showed the camera feed in real time, my empty bedroom waiting in perfect night vision clarity. Charlie moved like a professional burglar, avoiding the spots on the stairs that groaned under weight. He'd learned my house's quirks during his 3-week residency, mapping every sound that might betray his presence. The hallway floorboard outside my room whispered under his weight, then silence. He was listening, making sure his sleeping pill story had worked its magic. I controlled my breathing, keeping it deep and regular. My door handle turned with glacial slowness. Charlie's silhouette appeared in the doorway, backlit by the faint hallway nightlight. He stood frozen for 30 seconds, watching my supposedly unconscious form. Satisfied I was deeply sedated, he slipped inside. Charlie moved with predatory confidence now, believing himself invisible and untouchable. His dark clothing made him nearly invisible, but I could track his movement by sound and the shifting shadows. He didn't go immediately to the dresser. He went to the closet first, examining the safe. He ran his hand over the digital keypad, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object, a fiber optic scope, the kind used to examine internal mechanisms. He wasn't relying just on the key. He was prepared to force the digital lock too. He then approached my dresser with the certainty of a man who'd planned every step. 3 weeks of reconnaissance had taught him exactly where to find what he needed, the key that would unlock my safe. He positioned himself directly in front of the dresser. His hands reached for the second drawer, the one containing my spectacular surprise. The drawer slid open smoothly. For a split second, Charlie's posture radiated triumph. He'd found his target. He spotted the dummy key I'd left near the front and reached inside confidently, fingers seeking the brass key that would solve all his problems. Then my confetti bomb exploded. Boom! The sound was magnificent, like a party favor crossed with a small cannon. Silver and gold glitter erupted in a glorious cloud, coating Charlie from head to toe in sparkling confetti. The explosion echoed through the house like a celebratory gunshot. Charlie stumbled backward, cursing violently as glitter settled in his hair, on his clothes, across his shocked face. He looked like he'd been attacked by a craft store explosion, transformed into a walking disco ball. "What the hell?" he gasped, brushing frantically at the glitter that clung to everything. I performed my awakening with Academy Award precision, sitting up with startled confusion. "What on earth?" I called out, reaching for my bedside lamp. What was that noise? Light flooded the room, revealing Charlie in all his glittering glory. He stood frozen beside my dresser, covered head to toe in festive confetti, clutching the dummy key in his hand. "Charlie!" I blinked with theatrical bewilderment. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Glitter fell from his hair like holiday snow. I heard a noise," he stammered. "Thought someone might be breaking in." "Breaking in?" I glanced around my room with apparent confusion. "And you ended up sparkling?" Charlie looked down at himself, finally grasping the full extent of his transformation. He resembled a rejected Christmas ornament. "There was some kind of trap," he said weakly. "Trap? In my bedroom." From down the hall came the sound of feet hitting the floor. Lauren, awakened by the explosion, was coming to investigate. Charlie's eyes widened with panic. "How do you explain being covered in craft supplies while robbing your father-in-law at 3 a.m.? David!" "What's happening?" Lauren's voice carried worry and growing alertness. Charlie opened his mouth desperately, but no believable explanation emerged. He was caught literally glitter-handed in the act of betraying our family. I saw Lauren's shadow hit the doorframe as the glitter settled. "Dad, are you okay?" Lauren appeared in the doorway, tying her robe belt with quick, worried movements. Then she stopped dead, taking in the scene before her. Me sitting up in bed, apparently confused and concerned. Charlie standing beside my open dresser drawer, covered from head to toe in glittering confetti like he'd been dipped in a craft store. "What in the world?" Lauren's voice caught. "Charlie, why do you look like a Christmas decoration?" Charlie's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Glitter drifted from his hair with each movement, settling on my bedroom carpet like festive snow. "There was a noise," he said finally, his voice strained. "A loud bang. I came to check on your father." "At 3 in the morning," Lauren's tone sharpened. "And you ended up covered in... what is that glitter?" "Some kind of security device," Charlie said quickly, brushing frantically at his sparkling clothes. "It went off when I opened the drawer." Lauren's eyes moved from Charlie to the open dresser drawer, then to me. "Dad, do you have security devices in your furniture?" I maintained my expression of elderly confusion. "Not that I know of, sweetheart. I was sound asleep until that explosion woke me up." I pointed to the open drawer. "Then why were you in his dresser drawer, Charlie?" Lauren's voice carried a new edge I'd never heard before. Protective. Suspicious. Charlie's story began crumbling in real time. "I was looking for something to help you sleep." "You were tossing and turning, and I thought David might have some extra sleep aids." "Sleep aids?" Lauren's eyebrows lifted. "In his bedroom dresser?" "I thought maybe..." Charlie gestured weakly at the drawer, sending more glitter cascading to the floor. "Charlie," I said gently, "my medications are in the bathroom cabinet. They always have been." The silence that followed felt heavy with implications. Lauren looked between us, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder. A cold realization. "So, let me understand this," she said slowly. "You left our bed at 3 in the morning, came into my father's bedroom while he was sleeping, and opened his private dresser drawer, looking for medicine you knew wasn't there. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Lauren's voice rose slightly. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my husband was going through my father's personal belongings in the middle of the night. Charlie's desperation grew more visible. Lauren, you have to understand. I was just trying to help. Help with what exactly? I interjected mildly. What were you hoping to find in that drawer? Charlie's eyes darted between us. The question hung in the air like an accusation. I was confused, disoriented. I thought I heard someone breaking in. Breaking in? Lauren repeated flatly. So you decided to search my father's bedroom furniture? I wasn't searching. Then what do you call opening his dresser drawer? Charlie's glitter-covered hands clenched into fists. Why are you interrogating me like this? I'm your husband. The defensive anger in his voice seemed to hit Lauren like a physical blow. She took a step back, and I saw something change in her expression. The last traces of trust began to crumble. You're right, she said quietly. You are my husband, which is why I'm asking you to explain why you're standing in my father's bedroom at 3 in the morning covered in craft supplies with your hand in his private drawer. Charlie looked trapped, cornered by the weight of his own implausible explanations. Glitter continued to fall from his clothes like evidence of his guilt. I can explain everything, he said desperately. Then please do, Lauren crossed her arms, because right now I'm very confused about what my husband was doing in here. I watched my daughter's face and saw the exact moment her protective instincts shifted from Charlie to me. She was ready for the truth. Lauren, I said gently, reaching for my phone on the nightstand. There's something you need to hear. Charlie's face went white beneath the glitter. David, don't what? Don't what, Charlie? Lauren's voice sharpened dangerously. I found the recording from 2 nights ago and held up my phone. Sweetheart, I recorded something the night before last. A phone conversation. I think you should listen to it. No, Charlie said quickly. Lauren, whatever he thinks he heard. Be quiet, Lauren snapped, never taking her eyes off me. Dad, play it. I pressed play. Charlie's voice filled the room, clear and damning. Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep. The old man's definitely loaded. I found bank statements, investment portfolios, the whole thing. We're talking serious money here. Lauren's face went completely still. Her eyes widened as she listened to her husband's voice discussing my finances with a stranger. Tomorrow night, Lauren's going to her book club meeting. She goes every Tuesday 7 to 9, gives us perfect timing. Stop it, Charlie said desperately. Lauren, I can explain. Shut up, Lauren's voice was deadly quiet. Just shut up and let me listen. Charlie's voice continued from the phone. I already have the safe key. Grabbed it earlier today while they were having dinner. The old fool keeps everything important in there. Cash, jewelry, probably more bank information. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. She stared at Charlie like she was seeing a stranger. Look, I know you're worried about the timeline, but my gambling debts aren't going away. Those guys aren't exactly patient, if you know what I mean. Gambling debts? Lauren whispered. What gambling debts? The recording continued. David's just some lonely old widower. He has no idea what's coming. I watched my daughter's face crumble as she heard her husband's casual dismissal of me, his assessment of my vulnerability, his cold calculation. The beauty is he'll never suspect family. Even if he figures out something's missing, Lauren will convince him he just misplaced stuff. You know how old people get about their memory. Lauren made a sound like she'd been physically struck, the sound of realization turning to shame and fury. Trust me, by Thursday we'll be clear. I'll tell Lauren we got a job offer in another state, something urgent. We'll be gone before the old man knows what hit him. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. Lauren stared at Charlie, tears streaming down her face, but her chin was high. Gambling debts. You were going to rob my father. Lauren, listen to me. You called him a lonely old fool. Her voice broke. You were going to steal from him and then disappear, taking me with you as your cover story? Charlie tried to step toward her, but she backed away like he was dangerous. How much? She demanded. How much do you owe? It doesn't matter. How much? Charlie's shoulders sagged. 47,000. Lauren's legs seemed to give out. She sank against the doorframe, staring at the man she'd married. "You've been lying to me for months," she said, her voice rising to a shout, "about everything. The job loss, our finances, why we really needed to stay here. I was trying to protect you. By planning to rob my father?" Lauren's voice was laced with pure protective fury. "By using me as your alibi while you destroyed the man who raised me. Get out." Charlie stood there for another 10 seconds, glitter still falling from his hair like tarnished snow. Then something in Lauren's expression finally convinced him that his marriage was over. "This isn't finished," he said, his voice turning ugly, a venomous whisper. "Half of everything we own is mine. I'll get my share." "You mean half of our debt?" Lauren's voice was ice cold. "Because that's all we have, Charlie. Debt. Gambling debt that I knew nothing about. I'll fight you in court. With what money?" Charlie's bravado crumbled. He looked at me with something approaching hatred. "This is your fault, old man. You turned her against me." "No," Lauren said firmly. "You did that yourself. When you decided to plan a robbery instead of asking for help." She pointed toward the door. "Get your things and get out now." He left the room without another word, tracking glitter through my house like a trail of evidence. We could hear him in the guest room throwing clothes into bags with bitter violence. Lauren sank into my bedside chair, looking utterly exhausted. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I brought him into your home. I put you in danger." "Sweetheart, you couldn't have known. I should have seen the signs." "The glitter bomb was genius," she managed, giving me a genuine, though weak, laugh. Charlie reappeared in the doorway with 2 hastily packed bags, still sparkling like a defeated party favor. "Leave your key on the kitchen counter," Lauren said without looking at him. "Don't contact me. My lawyer will contact yours." Charlie opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to realize the futility. He turned away, and a minute later, we heard the front door slam. Lauren and I sat in silence for a few moments, listening to Charlie's car start and drive away into the night. "We need to call the police, Dad. We have the recording." "We will," I assured her. "But first, we need a plan. He's right about one thing. He's desperate. He might try to turn this around." I reached into the bedside drawer and pulled out the small black security camera, handing it to Lauren. "I got this to show you the evidence, but it also recorded everything. His entry, his search, the whole thing." Lauren's fingers closed around the cold plastic. "High-definition evidence." "Exactly, but he knows you and I are alone, and he knows I had to hide the real key somewhere after he took the dummy one. He's going to strike back, legally or otherwise." "What do you mean?" "Before he left, he saw me check the junk drawer where I'd stashed the actual safe key. He thinks I'm hiding something else." I watched Lauren's face harden with resolve. The tears were gone, replaced by a cold fire. "We're calling the police right now," she stated, grabbing my phone. "Good. Tell them you heard a noise and caught a trespasser who has been living here. We'll keep the glitter and the key for evidence." The call was brief and clinical. The officer on duty promised a follow-up visit first thing in the morning, around 8 a.m. I had exposed the thief, but I had dragged my daughter into a war. At 8:15 a.m., Officer Reynolds arrived. He was a young man, sharp and professional, but he looked completely baffled as he stepped over the threshold, following the trail of silver and gold glitter that led directly from the living room, up the stairs, and into my bedroom. "Mr. Thorne, you say your son-in-law was covered in this confetti when you confronted him?" "It was not confetti, officer. It was ultra-fine glitter and a dye-pack substitute I rigged to prove his intent. I showed him the disassembled cannon. I have his recorded confession, the security footage, and the dummy key he stole." Lauren, composed and dressed for business, handed him the phone. "My husband's voice is clear on here, officer. He details his plan to rob my father, steal a specific key, and use my presence as an alibi while he disappeared." Officer Reynolds listened to the recording twice, his expression shifting from skeptical to grave. "This is strong, Ms. Thorne. Extremely strong. We can file a report for attempted felony theft and break-in." We spent the next hour documenting the scene. Officer Reynolds collected the glittered clothing Charlie had left in the guest room, the dummy key, and a copy of the recorded confession. He mentioned gambling debts of $47,000, I added. He was fired from his last job for internal theft of $5,500. I have information suggesting the people he owes are aggressive collectors. We'll flag him as a flight risk and a person of interest, Mr. Thorne. This goes beyond a domestic dispute. We're dealing with organized financial crime here. As the officer left, I felt a rush of vindication. It was done. The legal machine was finally moving, but the victory was short-lived. At noon, a certified letter arrived for Lauren. It was a formal request for an emergency restraining order against me, filed by Charlie's lawyer. Lauren tore it open and read the contents, her face going pale. He claims I assaulted him. It says I used an explosive device, the glitter bomb, to cause severe emotional and physical distress. It demands I vacate the premises immediately. He's claiming the glitter trap was an assault? I chuckled, but the irony was bitter. That's low, even for him. It also cites the $47,000 debt, Lauren whispered. He's claiming that since he was robbed of the key, I am responsible for his safety because the debt collectors are now coming for him, and he names you as the reason he can't pay. The escalation was immediate and brutal. Charlie wasn't just defending himself, he was using the debt and the glitter trap as leverage to try and keep the house and pressure Lauren. This is a desperate countermeasure, I said, taking the document. We countersue for divorce and attempted felony theft immediately. The audio recording negates all of this. Just as I finished speaking, Lauren's phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Her face drained of color as she listened. I could hear a muffled, coarse voice on the other end, harsh and demanding. Yeah, we heard Charlie had a bad night, the voice rasped. He owes the boys $47,000 by Friday. Since he left your house, we figured you're the next best thing. Pay up, or we visit the house he just ran from. We'll assume his things are your things now. The line went dead. Lauren stared at the phone, her hand trembling. They found us, she whispered. They know he's gone, and they're coming here. They found him through his lawyer. Or they tracked the call from the other night, I said, my mind racing. He set us up, Lauren. He didn't just abandon us. He left us holding his debt. This was the next rung on the ladder, from private betrayal to financial and physical threat. I had planned for the legal fight, but not the direct threat from organized crime. I had exposed the thief, but I had dragged my daughter into a war. Lauren didn't cry. Instead, she moved with a frightening efficiency, every movement sharp and decisive. We need to call Officer Reynolds back, she said, her voice taut. This is an explicit threat. Wait, I interrupted. We call Reynolds and we get a police detail, which is good. But Charlie's accomplice, the guy on the phone, that's the real threat. The debt is their leverage. We need to cut the head off this snake. I retrieved the burner phone and flash drive I'd given Ray. Ray told me the creditors are the boys, high-risk collection. They are looking for easy money and leverage. I have a recorded confession proving Charlie was planning to rob me, not pay them. That changes the narrative. How? Charlie's accomplice thinks Charlie got the money and skipped out on him. Charlie's betrayal of me is useful to them. It proves his desperation, but also his dishonesty. They don't want to go to war with a retired insurance investigator and the police over $47,000 if they can find a better target. I had Ray meet us at the old gas station lot at 5:30 p.m. Lauren insisted on coming. He threatened my home, Dad. I'm not waiting in the house for someone to show up. Ray was waiting in his car, looking worried. He quickly handed me a file. The guy who called you, Lauren, is a mid-level collector for a Jersey outfit. Name is Vic. He's dangerous but predictable. He wants the $47,000, and he believes Charlie used the robbery to pay them off and is now hiding. He was going to use the money for a clean getaway with me, Lauren corrected, her voice brittle. We need to meet this Vic and show him that Charlie is a liability, not an asset, I stated. I need you to set up a clean, non-violent meet. Tell him I have something of value he will want more than the debt. Ray's eyebrows shot up. You want to meet a loan shark collector? I want to use my leverage, I said, tapping the flash drive. Charlie's betrayal wasn't just of us. It was of his accomplice, too. He was going to cut everyone out and flee the state. They don't tolerate that. Ray spent 2 tense hours setting the stage. By 7:30 p.m., we were parked in a different, even emptier lot outside an abandoned diner, the kind of place where trouble comes to die. "He's coming alone," Ray reported via text. "I told him you have proof Charlie was planning to betray the entire operation, and you have enough evidence to put the whole collection agency under the microscope for racketeering if he steps foot on your property." Good. A black sedan with tinted windows pulled into the lot. A heavy-set man in a worn leather jacket, Vic, stepped out. He didn't look happy. He walked directly to my car window. "You the old man?" he grunted. "I'm David," I said calmly, rolling down the window just enough to talk. "And this is my daughter Lauren. She's the one you called to threaten." Lauren leaned forward, meeting his hostile gaze without flinching. "You threatened my father's house over my husband's debt. You should know my husband is a proven thief, fired for stealing $5,500 from his company, and he just tried to rob me and my father tonight." Vic's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in the power dynamic. "I don't care what he did to you. He owes $47,000. That problem is now yours." "No," I corrected, holding up the flash drive. "That problem is Charlie's, and he was planning to stick all of you with the bill while he disappeared with my money. I have his recorded confession. He names his accomplice and details how he planned to use Lauren as cover." "Why would I believe you?" "Because I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator, and I'm offering you a clean way out of a federal investigation," I stated, keeping my voice low and firm. "Charlie's desperate. He's running. You can go after my assets, invite the police, and make your operation public. Or you can use this recording, track Charlie down, and collect your $47,000 from him directly. I have the evidence that will put him in your crosshairs, not ours." I slid the flash drive through the small opening in the window. "This is the confession. He tells his accomplice everything." Vic looked at the flash drive, then at Lauren, then back at me. He was calculating the risk of fighting a clean, legally minded opponent versus the reward of cutting his losses and pinning the debt on a known thief. "You want me to take care of your problem for you," he observed. "I want you to leave my daughter and my house out of this," I said. "Charlie is your target. You track him down. I have the resources to keep this quiet, but if you contact Lauren again, I'm filing a police report and handing all my documentation, including your threat to her, to the district attorney for racketeering. Your choice." Vic stared at the drive, then slipped it into his pocket. He didn't need to believe me entirely. He only needed to believe the risk of not taking the drive was higher than the reward. He saw the cold steel in Lauren's eyes and the calculation in mine. The man just nodded slowly, then whispered one word. "Done." He turned and walked back to his sedan without another look. The car sped out of the lot, tires spitting gravel. I had negotiated with the devil and won temporary immunity. "Dad, what did you just do?" Lauren asked, breathing hard. "I took Charlie's weapon, his debt, and aimed it back at him," I explained. "Vic is now hunting Charlie, not us. We are safe from the boys for now. The only debt Charlie will be fighting is the one in divorce court." We drove home. The weight of the threat temporarily lifted, but the emotional exhaustion was immense. I had traded one predator for another. The next morning, Lauren and I met with a family lawyer. The evidence, the audio recording, the glitter-covered clothing, Charlie's flight, and the police report filed by Officer Reynolds made the case straightforward. Lauren filed for divorce and, crucially, a civil suit to recover the $47,000 Charlie had tried to pin on her, citing his attempts to use her as an unwitting accomplice to felony theft. The restraining order Charlie had filed against me was dismissed almost immediately after the judge reviewed the surveillance footage and the audio confession. Charlie's claim of assault vanished like smoke. Charlie tried one last desperate move. A week later, I received a certified letter stating Charlie planned to attend the monthly Coeur d'Alene Homeowners Association meeting. He intended to address the board, claiming I was violating neighborhood security codes by setting booby traps and causing a public disturbance. It was his final, futile attempt at public humiliation. "He wants a spectacle," Lauren said, reading the notice. "He wants to turn this into a neighborhood gossip session so he can claim victimhood in court. He wants to play victim in front of Mrs. Henderson," I chuckled dryly. "Fine. Let's give the HOA a show. That night, the community clubhouse was packed. Charlie, still wearing the faint sheen of silver glitter on his collar, spoke first. He was tearful, dramatic, claiming I was an unstable, vengeful old man who had nearly killed him with a spring-loaded explosive device. He attacked me. I was checking on his safety, and he subjected me to a chemical attack, Charlie shouted, gesturing wildly. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I simply walked to the podium and projected the security camera footage from my phone onto the HOA's main screen. It was black and white night vision footage, but it was clear. It showed Charlie entering my room stealthily, his examination of the safe, his confident approach to the drawer, the boom of the glitter cannon, and his subsequent panic. It was silent until I played the audio recording over the footage. Charlie's voice, cold and sneering, filled the room. The old man's definitely loaded. The old fool keeps everything important in there. Trust me, by Thursday, we'll be clear. The room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Then, a voice broke the silence. Mrs. Henderson. I knew that boy was trouble, she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Charlie's face turned white. His plan had backfired spectacularly. The HOA board immediately tabled his complaint and unanimously voted to formally censure him for his conduct. He stormed out, leaving behind a wake of stunned silence and a few lingering sparkles of silver glitter. Lauren's divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Charlie contested nothing. He was busy dealing with the consequences of his actions, the police report, the civil suit for the $47,000, and the increasingly persistent inquiries from the boys, who had found a new, easier target. Lauren moved into a small apartment downtown and quickly found a job at the local library. She was rebuilding her life slowly on a foundation of truth. Any regrets about the great glitter trap of March? She asked me over coffee one morning, 3 months after Charlie's departure. Only that I didn't film his face when it exploded, I replied, taking a sip of coffee. Thank you, Dad, for protecting me, for handling everything so elegantly. Thank you for trusting me when it mattered most. After she left, I sat in my kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. The house felt peaceful in a way it hadn't for months. No tension, no lies, no one calculating how to exploit my kindness. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. Forgot to mention Mrs. Henderson asked if you'd help her install a security system. Apparently, word got around about your innovative home protection methods. I laughed out loud. Sometimes justice comes from courtrooms and police. Sometimes it comes from trusting your instincts, setting careful traps, and letting desperate people reveal their true natures. And sometimes, justice is served in the silence after the slam. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.